Hello and welcome to This Is Ibrox podcast. I'm your host, Ross Chalmers, and this is the breakdown. Different face tonight. It's usually Craig doing this one, but I'm stepping in for him. He's away on a lovely holiday, so let's hope he enjoys that one. First of all, joining me tonight is Kieran. How are you, Kieran?
I'm good, mate. I was going to have a shave for it, but after hearing the gaffer Tommy get called a neckbeard, I'm showing solidarity, so support with Tommy.
That's it. I like it. I'm very much the same as you, so I'm glad to see it. And yeah, we've got a debut tonight. Kendal has recently joined the podcast. This is his first one. Kendal, how are you?
I'm great. Thanks very much. I have chosen to shave today, and I'm in solidarity with all those with the fat necks. So
you can't be that. I know. You've went for yourself early on in this podcast, Kendal. You need to let everyone else do that for you. But yeah, anyone joining in live tonight, remember, give us a wee like, subscribe to the channel. It really helps out if you enjoy the content. And what we're going to do in this one, we're going to just have a wee deeper look into pre-season for Rangers. There's been ups and downs throughout it. I'm sure we'll all agree on that one. We'll have a wee look at just the performances in general, what we feel about them. That kind of centre-back question that everyone's talking about at the moment. Do we really need one? How wary are we of that position? Talk about the left-back as well. Ridvan, Barisic, I feel like that's all everyone talks about at the moment. So we'll get into that. Then we'll have a wee look at the kind of tactical elements because we have seen different systems from Michael Beale this pre-season. We even seen that at the weekend with Hoffenheim. He actually mentioned that in his press conference before it or his interview before it, that he was trying a few things. And then we'll just have a wee look at some of the individuals. Let's hope we'll maybe go in the positive signs of the individuals that we felt good about in this pre-season. So yeah, we'll get stuck into it. Kieran, we'll bring you in first then. Well, in terms of pre-season, the performances overall, we'll just go through it. It was a 2-1 loss to Newcastle in the first game. We then beat Hamburg 2-1, lost to Olympiacos 3-1, and then we drew with Hoffenheim 2-2. So I think there was mixed performances throughout. You would always expect that in pre-season. You're trying to gel new players. It's a bit an up and down. You're recycling the team. Just overall feeling of pre-season, do you come out of it with positivity, or are you a bit wary of what's to come after what you've seen in these last 4 games?
I think I sat in the fence a wee bit. I've coached for many years and know that pre-season serves a purpose. Not only just for fitness as in what they do on the training field, but match sharpness is a huge thing. You can't get that from anything else apart from being on that pitch and playing games competitively. So for me, I can appreciate at the weekend Michael Beale wanting to try a 4-4-2 because do you know what? It didn't work. The likelihood is he won't try it again. So that's why friendlies in pre-season can serve a purpose like that, so you can try new things. In terms of the fitness, I think I can't say we got better as we got going, but there was a lot of changes. Every game had something different, especially that last game. Who would have thought we would have seen Balogun and John Leafeco at centre-back 3 weeks ago? Like, we would never have guessed that. But the negatives, one alarming thing for me that really stood out like a sore thumb, and I hope that we don't see it going into the league campaign and domestic campaign, is Cantwell playing out of position. The team should be built around Cantwell. He should be playing as close to his strikers as he can, not out in the left, not a deep line midfielder. He should be a number 10 with 2 strikers ahead of him. Big Lammers has done unbelievable. I think he looks like the pick of the bunch in pre-season and probably the best is yet to come from him, but he shouldn't be played into a number 10 and Cantwell shoehorned into somewhere else, because I think that is just a complete misuse of our best player.
Well, I'm glad you've dug into the tactical stuff, Kieran, because that's definitely something we're going to come to, and that I love digging into this stuff, so I'm glad I've got you on tonight. I actually agree with what you're saying there, Cantwell, and I think it's a tough one because, and we will go look into this more, but Cantwell was so effective there last season, and you've maybe not seen the best of him this preseason because of that move, but Sam Lammers is flying, so it's a really difficult one. How do you? It's up to Michael Beale really. How does he get both of these players in the team in a preferred role? And we will dig into that later on in the podcast. Kendal, we'll come to yourself then.
Yeah,
there was something mentioned on the podcast last night with Kyle. He was saying around the level of opposition that you play in pre-season. We've played pretty high level opposition throughout this, probably European level competition. Mm-hmm. What do you think that is worthwhile? Would you go down that route that you're trying to prepare yourself for the Champions League qualifiers, or should pre-season be a mix of trying to find fitness, trying to find a good level of opposition, but also trying to build confidence? Because I'm not sure that Rangers have been able to do that this pre-season with the level of opposition they've been up against. What do you think about that?
I think the mood in the camp is good. So the confidence doesn't bother me overly. I think it's the right thing to do is to go right heavy on the quality of the opposition. The only game really I was concerned about is the Olympiacos game. That was the one where where we're really searching for any positives out of that game. There really wasn't a lot. I get they were trying a lot tactically. My own thing is I don't see the point of giving the two other goalkeepers half a game each. I think that's a confusing thing to do. When you've got the Champions League so early, I think it's great to be up against these bigger teams, these harder teams. So you get you can gel in particular the back four together. Whereas we're going to go in the season and the back four are hardly going to know each other's names. And that's the kind of concern from the pre-season for me. Is I would have liked to have had a solid build, and I'll be surprised if going into the first couple of weeks of the season until we get past those qualifiers that we don't see a lot of the old faces from last year. I'm expecting to see Jack. I'm expecting to see Lundstrom, for the simple fact if you put 10 new players on who've had 45 minutes each as playing together, they've had more individual minutes than that, but playing together they've not had a lot of that. So I think it served a purpose. I think there was positives in a lot of the games, fitness especially. I mean, Torsten Cantwell there, you're absolutely right. He should be playing. He should be the one we build the team around. But the fitness levels of that boy in pre-season, I mean, he was everywhere. I mean, he wasn't. It's not his favourite position. You can see that, and he wasn't making it to a lot of the people and all this kind of stuff. But it was his tackle that that led to a goal later because he was sliding in right in the 18-yard box, more or less our furthest player back. And then he's up on the right wing, and then he's on the left wing and stuff like that. So his fitness levels, and you can see that. So I'm not concerned about the positivity going into it. I think they're ready for the season, but the tactics need to be spot on. You're talking about back tactics. The tactics need to be spot on, and we maybe tried too many things in pre-season, is what I would say.
Yeah, there was quite a range of different styles and formations I felt with Michael Beale that pre-season, and I think he's forced into it a wee bit with the personnel. He's maybe not had everyone up to speed that he's looking for. And then you're looking at the availability of your defenders. You've not really got a sustained centre-back pair in there, and that is so important for any side. You need to have stability in that area of the pitch, and we have not had that, and this is something we will dig into shortly. We've seen this last season. We just don't have any sort of stability in that area. There's not a continuous flow in there. And I think that's something that Rangers fans are really, really worried about, because we've seen it again, Lundstrom and Jack and that pairing. No one wants to see that. No one wants to see John Lundstrom back there. And that's something they're definitely going to have to press on with. There's a couple of comments here, a couple of good ones actually. Rob says, we learned that our fans are sensible, level-headed individuals that don't read too much into a pre-season victory or defeat. Well, you're watching the right podcast, Rob, because we'd like to think that's what we are here. We might be mistaken, but we'd like to think that's what we are. And there's a couple of compliments here as well. There's Scott Mitchell, our very own Scott Mitchell, two of my favourite podcasters, and Ross on tonight. So thanks, Scott. Appreciate that one, mate. I'm glad to have you here with us. Yeah, okay, so we touched on it there then, and we've probably jumped into it maybe quicker than I had in my agenda, but let's get talking about it. This centre-back problem we have, Kieran, we've seen that at the weekend that we had Leon Balogun in there and John Ufeko. I actually think Leon Balogun has had quite a lot of stick in this pre-season, and I'm not really sure why, because he's looked like half decent when he's played. There's nothing really jumping out to me that he's done wrong, but I think it's just the fans are feeling frustrated around that area. I think we've also seen really, really good spells from John Ufeko, but I think we've seen in that game in the weekend, he's just not ready yet. I've seen him quite a few of the times for the B team, and I'll be honest with you, I didn't think he was ready to step up to the first team, so the fact he's been involved in pre-season was a big surprise to me. I have to give it to him. I think he done really well when he appeared, but I think that there was just he gets pulled out for the first goal, and you can't get pulled out as a centre-back like that. You need to be aware, and we're cut open. How pressing is this issue for Rangers? Do you think this is something that Michael Beale can get by with the options he has? Connor Goldson's going to be coming back shortly. We know how important he is. Or do you really think that we're at a level now that we have to go and invest in that position? It has to be the next signing, as you would say, after Jose Cifuentes.
Yeah, I think prior to the weekend, I would have said we were fine. But given how things went at the weekend, I'm now very much on the case of we need another player, left-sided centre-back, or even just a centre-back. I think someone spoke today that is it Austin Trusty's off to Sheffield United, so we can park that one. Jonathan Panzo seems like the only realistic option at the moment. I've been vocal on here saying I'm not a fan of him. So from that, to me, it screams out, considering that come the end of the week we'll have signed 9 players, screams to me that the management and the boardroom seem to think that the centre-back position, of the positions identified that we need to improve on or sign a player, is the least important, that it's been left to last. So for me, it might be something that's addressed towards the end of the month. I don't know where we're going to go with it, but it is quite apparent we need something in there. But I wholeheartedly agree with you and everything you said. Balogun's done well. His last-ditch challenge at the weekend was a particular standout. Hopefully he'll be fit for the weekend, considering he's come off with a strain and possibly cramp. I'm not sure what it was later in the game. But in terms of John Leafeco, we're very much a support that we're crying out to see the next big young player. And last season, we done it with McCrory after the Old Firm game, and he was very shaky after that. And I think we've made the right decision in bringing Butland in, whereas everybody thought, right, put the number 1 jersey on McCrory. I think it's the right decision not to. I think it's the right thing with John Leafeco. What I would say with John Leafeco is it's maybe pushed him on to get a good loan move, which would really benefit him, because what age is he? Is he 20, 21?
I think he's 20. Yeah.
He's not a pup at all. So he's coming into that age where he's going to need first team minutes in the legs. 30 first team games, 30 first team appearances over a season would do him the hell of a good. But I think we're crying out for a centre back now. Suter and Goldson will be the pairing. Goldson's had a bit of a long-term injury. Suter can keep fit. And then you're looking at Davis and Balogun. So we're a wee bit thin there, I'd say.
Yeah, I think I'm with you now. I was very much in the fence of what you've said there of when there's other areas of the squad that we have to invest in first. But I think over the last couple of preseason games, how shaky we've been, I think we really need to invest in that area. It's maybe one you're going to see at the end of the window, because the speculation about Ben Davis at the moment puts everything up in the air. If Ben Davis stays, I think you do have a good centre-back there, a capable centre-back. There's a lot of people that don't think that, right? But I think Ben Davis he's been fine. He maybe lost a wee bit of confidence towards the end of the last season, but I thought throughout pre-season he was okay. I think he has that sclaff against Olympiacos, which ultimately ends up in a goal, so it's going to be held against him. But yeah, I think until that speculation dies down, people are going to be looking at that area of the park with a wee bit of uncertainty. There's a couple of comments here. John Moffat says, after Cifuentes, we need to get a CB in. Yeah, completely agree with that one. We've also got Tommy here, our managing editor. Level-headed analysis, that's Is Ibrox, apart from these 3. So, yep, thanks very much. We're all happy to be here, Tommy. Thank you.
We are getting I showed solidarity with him. I'm away for a shave now.
Everyone's getting the frustrations out in this Monday night podcast. Kendall, we'll come to you then. There's a good comment here from Hugo Bear. He says, we don't defend as a team, not picking up runners and ball watching. Now, I do have this in my notes that I think some of the goals we conceded have just not necessarily been because we've not had our first choice centre-back pairing. Some of the goals have been really poor. I mean, people switching off, not making blocks when they should, not putting the body in the line, getting caught out of position. I mean, we've seen it with Borna Barisic so many times. He's caught under the ball, right? And when you're caught under the ball and then you're faced up one-on-one, there's a good chance that the wide man's going to beat you. How concerning is it that, not even to do with the centre-backs, but just as a defensive unit, we don't look very good right now? And you are heading into, the first game is upcoming with Kilmarnock, and then you get that European qualifier. Does that worry you?
To a degree. What I would say is we're probably 2 weeks away. If pre-season had started 2 weeks later, you'd be sitting here probably with Souter, Goldson, Tav, and other on the left-hand side playing the majority of those minutes, and we probably wouldn't have looked as bad. But the mistakes you're talking about aren't mistakes from this pre-season. They are mistakes from this pre-season, but they're also mistakes from last season, and they're also mistakes from the season before. Now, we went a couple of seasons back when we got 55. It was built on the defence. we did not concede goals. So the amount of 1-0 wins we had was ridiculous. Now, you put Balogun back in there, and in reality, we've got almost the same defence, or we do have the same defence we've got available, which is Balogun, Goldson, Tav, Barisic. And they're in a very different place. They just seem to want to play everything from the back. I mean, you look at the goal the weekend there, and Yilmaz, and he's getting a bit stick for it just now. He's a young boy. He's not had a run of games. It's pre-season, and he's kind of carrying the can, I think, a little bit for Barisic's mistakes, because that's the kind of mistake that he makes all the time just now, which is they get the ball, whether it's in the backs. I remember towards the end of the season, whether some of the ones we lost. Ben Davies heading the ball up, and then he's heading it there, and he's trying to do this way. You're in your 6-yard box, and you have to defend properly, and that concerns me. The fact that we seem to want to play football wherever we are on the pitch, and if you're in the 6-yard box, and I saw it actually the weekend from Todd Cantwell as well, amongst everybody else. He was trying to play football in the box when the opposition players on him. Is like, you have to clear it. It's great, this football and this total football and our play that we see in the training videos, and I want to see it all day, and I know everybody's getting used to each other, but I don't want to see that in my 18-yard box, and I think that's and that's the concern for me is at the minute. I'm not overly concerned. I think we do need another centre back, because I'm not convinced about Davies. What we need to get rid of Davies, and we need to get a left centre back in from him. And then we need to decide what we're doing with left back, which you know we'll come to. I'll park that bit, so because I know we're going to come on to that. But yeah, that's centre back pairing for me is key. And because Goldson's not there, but didn't have the chance to see a lot of it in pre-season, whatever the first choice is going to be. But if you get Goldson, and I suspect they won't play him on Saturday because it's a plastic pitch. So somebody actually pointed that out to me, and you're absolutely right. I wouldn't pay him on Saturday. But the way Goldson is, I've got no doubt he'll be in the game after. I'll be very surprised if he's not. So then you've got Goldson and Souter, and that's solid. And then we'll take it from there. But one of those gets injured, there's nothing behind them, and that's the concern.
Yeah, I enjoy anyone giving praise to Connor Goldson, Kendall, because I think he's a player over the years that you don't really realise the impact on the team until he's not there. And it's funny how we're even seeing that again in pre-season. We just don't look solid enough as a unit without him. He's so important. And I'm with you. I think when he comes back, you will see a big difference. I don't think everything will be cleared up completely, but I think there'll be another level of organisation in there. And I think him, Jack Butland, they've got good experience. They can really marshal that defence from their viewpoint in the centre, and I'm looking forward to seeing that. There was a couple of comments here, and I had it later on the podcast to dive into the fullbacks, right? But we're going to dive into it now because a lot of people are talking about it. We've got this from Scott Mitchell. He said, a number of goals this preseason have been struggling with runners from deep. It's a worry. We need players covering those positions. Saw it with Hoffenheim. Yilmaz gets drawn into cover. And we've seen one from RFC 72 here. Tav, Borna and Ridvan have all been targeted and rinsed this preseason and season before. It's worrying. So, Kieran, I'll come to you then, right? We've heard this a lot, that Michael Beale's playing very narrow at the moment. That's a term we all keep hearing, narrow. He's playing too narrow, and the fullbacks are being exposed. Is this something we need to accept, right? That is where goals are going to come from opposition, because that is the system we're playing in? Or do we need to change it to try and give these fullbacks a wee bit of cover? Because really, I think we have to be honest, all of our fullbacks, other than Dujon Sterling, but we haven't seen it yet, right, aren't great defensively, right? 1v1. I think they've all get better over the years, but you can definitely get at them, let's be honest. Yeah. Is that something that Michael Beale maybe has to have a wee think about, or do you think he's just going to stick with it and go, this is fundamentally the weakness in my system, and we'll try our best to negate that?
Yeah, it's something that really confuses me, given what we've been trying and given what we've seen in pre-season, that when you see the signings he's made, in particular the forward line, and we've not signed any wingers, no wingers whatsoever. When Beale was here the first time round under Gerrard, I can remember listening to a coaching podcast that he was on, and he spoke about like how many wingers we had actually signed at the time, and that was because he was a winger when he played football, and he absolutely loved wingers. Now it seems like the status quo has always been that we play one up front with two off them, that being, I'm talking about like Kent and Wright last year off of Morelos. It seems that he wants to move away from that now. But again, though, we always talk about how he wants to be fluid in his approach, that guys can play in different positions and tactically he can change and adapt at times. But I can't see that. I can't see that with this team. The only two guys that look like they can play wing is Matondo and Sakala, and I really don't want to see them near any first team this season whatsoever. And I think a lot of fans will share my view on that. Regarding the fullbacks, I don't know. I like the 4-3-3 that he plays, whether it's with a flat 2 up front and a 10 in behind, or with a 1 up front and 2 10s in behind. That's worked for us before. It has, but I don't know. I don't know if we've got the personnel to do that now, but yeah, I'm really confused at how we're going to go. I really do hope we go with that. It's a sort of 4-1-2-3 that he tends to play, and the 3 in the middle and the 3 up front move side to side like a 4 almost. But it's yet to be seen. I'm not worried. I've got full faith in Beale. He's very good tactically. If he wants to try something out in pre-season, then that's up to him. It's his job that's on the line after we've just spent the best part of 15 million.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting point you've made there, with the midfield and things like that. Is that something we need to take into consideration? You spoke about there, that kind of narrow 3 and they all shifted side to side. That asks a lot of those 2 midfielders on the outside. Do we have the personnel there? And I'll stick with you in this one, Kieran. Do we actually have the personnel there right now to play like that? Because Raskan's going to play, right?
Yep.
So you're gonna have to move someone in there, probably like a Ryan Jack, right? Does Ryan Jack have the physicality to cover the yards anymore? Can you then afford to play a John Lundstrom when really every time he plays he doesn't really perform? But Beale's always spoke about he wants kind of 2 holding midfielders in there. It just a lot of the things he's maybe said in the past about how he wants to approach it tactically. You're not really seeing that on the park at the moment. Now, again, this is all caveated with its pre-season, right? But again, is that midfield a problem? Do we actually really need a fit Ryan Jack to really play this system? Because you know how important he is for kind of marshalling that field and covering gaps. Is that something we need to look at?
Yeah, we do really need a fit Ryan Jack. He's an asset to the team. A lot of people were against him getting the contract extension. Me personally, I wasn't. Considering he did play the best part of 30, he made the best part of 30 appearances last year. I think that's a good haul. In terms of a fit Ryan Jack playing with us, I'd say he's the first name in the team sheet, because when he is fit and he is kicking on, he's the man in there. But I think he's going to manage him. I think in terms of the fitness side of things, I don't think you'll see him playing unless it is 2 sitting midfield, and I would prefer it if it was him and Raskin. But if you're looking at guys that are going to play side to side, your middleman would be Ryan Jack, with Raskin to the right of the 3, possibly Dow to the left of the 3. If what we see is what we believe in Cifuentes, he looks a very fit guy. So for me, it looks like he could do the role because he's a box-to-box midfielder. It's something that could very much work. I do believe he's playing narrow because domestically, every single game of the season, apart from 4, will come up against a low block. In order to beat the low block, you need to play between the lines. So I feel that's why we're playing narrow.
Yeah, and he's trying to use those fullbacks as a width, isn't he? But we've been playing such good opposition in pre-season that you're not really going to have it your own way, and they're going to stop that. I think you've seen that against Newcastle in the first game. I thought that was a bit of a lesson that first half, to be honest with you. And I think that's good for the squad, right? It's early on in the pre-season. They go, wow, we're playing top opposition here. If this is what we're going to, face in the Champions League, it's good to get this out now. I thought they really showed that how to use width in a football park. They really gave us a bit of a lesson. And I think that's great for us moving forward. So I'm going to come to you then, Kendal. I know we moved on a wee bit into the midfield, but let's just talk about the fullbacks then. So we'll leave the right-hand side. I think we've probably not seen enough of Dujon Sterling yet. I know a lot of people do want to see him, and that's good. I'm sure he'll get his chance. But James Tavernier's the captain, right? So he's going to play for at least starting the season. Left back, right? It's a topic of conversation all Rangers fans are talking about at the moment. I know where I stand, but I'm going to let you take this away. Borna Barisic, Ridvan, where do you stand on it? Who's been the worst in pre-season? Because that's really the way you're looking at it at the moment. They've both made mistakes. Where are you sitting on this one?
Where I'm sitting is I don't think either left back is as bad as we're actually getting made out. But I'll very quickly, before everybody jumps in the comments on this one, yes, they're not great, but I genuinely think that the biggest issue we've got is left centre back, and I believe probably wrongly, but I believe that the instruction is for the left back to be tucking in on top of the centre back when the ball comes down there. And you can see it because, especially I think it was the Olympiacos game, they were targeting that area. It was just ball over, ball over, ball over,
Newcastle
ball over,
as well.
kind of stuff. Just that's where the weak link is. Because they're having to tuck in, they're playing two positions and they don't have that guy in front of them that's coming back as quickly. They're never 2-on-1. They would never have a 2-on-1 defensive situation down that side. So I've got a bit of sympathy for them. In addition to that, I would probably, when you get in the initial games, unless we get somebody, I would be tempted to play Sterling because he can play on that side. So I'd be tempted to play him. Or I would be tempted, or I would be going with Barisic. And the reason I'd be going with Barisic is not because I think he's a better player than Yilmaz, because he's not. But if you look at the Newcastle game, the winning goal, because again, he gets sucked in, he comes in the middle, he's 1-on-1 against a tall striker. He's too short for that. He is not a defensively built defender, if that makes sense. He's not going to win headers. He's very good in the air for his size. But he got out jumped. I mean, if you saw the replay of that goal, the winning goal against Newcastle, he's a huge height differential, and it's something that can be cut, that can be targeted, and I think we need not to have that. Anybody that plays here has to learn how to clear a ball. I go back to that. They have to learn how to clear a ball. So in my idea, I think we'll see Barisic at the start of the season, unless they put in Sterling. I would be tempted to put in Sterling. The guy loves to defend. He's on record as loving to defend. He wants to defend first. I'd have Tav bombing up the wing every time and almost go into a 3 if needs be. Every time Tav's up the pitch and to play Sterling on that left side. And then as time goes on and the months go on, he can go up the front. And if he stakes for a claim, we get a good left back in, then absolutely switch him and rest Tav on the right-hand side. But I think he's the potential answer at the minute. In all honesty, you've got a back four going into the qualifiers. Or going into the next month, and you were playing Tav, and you're playing Sterling, and Goldson and Souter in the middle, I'd have no issue with that. But if injuries come,
it's a totally different story. Well, that's interesting, Kendal, because I think most fans, right, would disagree with that in terms of Borna Barisic being your choice, right? And I don't think it's completely out there, because it's actually what I've predicted through pre-season. I'm pretty sure Borna Barisic will start the season. And I've been a wee bit on each side with it. Okay, I really, really like the look of Ridvan. I think it's a freshness, the way he plays, the ability to drive with the ball, come inside, hit the byline, look for a cutback. It's something we've not really had in a fullback, because James Tavernier doesn't really play that way either. So I like the freshness, but I can also understand the experience with Borna Barisic and what he gives you, and Michael Beale trusts him, and that's something in football that we probably overlook sometimes, that relationship between manager and player. The only thing I would add to that, and I'll get your thoughts on this, Kieran, where you stand in the debate, the negativity surrounding Borna Barisic now is something I just don't know if he's going to get over. You've seen it at Ibrox when he drives forward with the ball, he'll have people in front of him and he just automatically cuts back on his left foot. He cuts back on his left side to protect the ball. Now, points last season, that was working and he was able to recycle possession, but actually in pre-season, he's getting picked. The ball's been getting taken off him when he's doing that. Now, obviously, you're playing against the better opposition. They understand what you're trying to do. But that negativity that's associated with Borna Barisic now, I'm just not sure if that's something we want going into another season. I think we would be better as a squad with just having a bit of a freshness in there. And that doesn't negate anything that Kendal said. I totally understand his perspective, but that's just where I lie. What do you think, Kieran? Where do you lie on it? Does Borna get another chance for you, or is it Ridvan's time?
It's a difficult decision. None of us three can even come to a nailed on decision regarding who plays at left back. For me, I don't think there's ever been a truer song associated with a player than Borna Barisic. He comes and goes, because you really don't know what you're going to get. There was months last season where Barisic was our best player. It didn't go wrong for a while, and then I think the fans are crying out for a freshness after the split when the league had gone. Ridvan was the man for us, especially the Firm game. He was excellent. Coming into pre-season now, I think when we look at pre-season, there isn't a lot of negativity surrounding it. I'm not going back on your earlier point here, but there's a lot of players have played themselves, a lot more players have played themselves out of the shirt rather than into it. And I think we'll look at Barisic and we'll look at Ridvan in that case, and probably the fact that they're up against each other here in a battle for the position would mean that one of them survives it, one of them starts. But when I look at the situation as a whole, it's pretty much horses for courses. I think in terms of a rugby park, tight park, horrible pitch, Barisic has been there, he's done that, he knows what it's all about. I would go with Barisic. Following week at home, bigger pitch, a lot more confidence. You give us that energy going forward. That's Ridvan for me. So they both give you two different options. If you want a guy that's going to play alongside the back four, not really go up the park too much, keep the ball ticking over, keep it safe, Barisic is your man. If you want a flying fullback that's going to hit the byline, we've seen it in one of the friendlies with a really good through ball from Dowell, where Ridvan was absolutely flying up the park. He really gives us that option that Barisic doesn't. So very much for me, horses for courses. Barisic at the weekend would get the nod for me. The European games as well, Barisic would get the nod. He's been there, done that. But again, do we need to sign a left centre back who can also play left back, aka Bassey? Possibly.
I wish we'd got in before he went to Fulham, eh? Could have came back and give us a... We just need to find a 20 million fee for him. No, I know.
Yeah. Let's get the comments going. Mental Hollander's still out there.
Yeah. No, I know. He's linked with Serie A sides at the moment. It's unbelievable. Yeah. So there's a couple of comments here that's worth bringing up. Maybe goes along with what I said there from William. Barisic's confidence is totally gone. I think I agree with that, even though I agree with a lot of your points there, Kieran, in terms of what he brings and horses for courses. I totally get that. Got a good question here from RFC72. Barisic doesn't defend the pack post either. I think that was referring to your comment earlier, Kendal, about Ridvan. If you could get a decent left back for a reasonable fee, would you get rid of Ridvan and Barisic for them? So we'll come to you first thing, Kendal, is would you go with the... Because you've got to remember, recruitment's always a risk, right? So You've got Ridvan and Barisic at the moment. You know what you get. Would you take a risk if Ridvan's always been linked with Turkey? He's always been linked with a move back, and Barisic has most recently been linked with Nottingham Forest. How true that is, I'm not sure. If that was an option for you, is it something you would take?
Yeah, totally. 100%. You've got, you're saying it's a risk. Yes, it is a risk. But then last season, young Devine played in that position a few times and never let anybody down. So you've got an option there. We know Sterling can play in that position. We've not seen him play in that position yet, but he can play in that position. So we've got two issues there. And to be quite honest, I'm not convinced, apart from, as I say, from experience point, as you rightly said, you're going to have the guys that know the course. That's what I'm saying. At the start of the season, you can't put 10 new players on the pitch. You can't, because you're going to lose. So you have to bleed them in. It's all very well them being together in pre-season, but you have to bleed them in. But in that particular position, if we are playing either of those two, and listen, it's harsh on Ilmas. He played all right though at the end of the last season. So this is pre-season. He's coming in. He's trying something a wee bit different. He's maybe trying a different system and stuff like that. He's made a couple of mistakes. He might get better. As he learned, we don't know whether he's learned. Barisic has done it how many times? We don't know if Yilmaz is now, had such a rocket up his backside, because he was really, the fans all wanted him to do well. And so he's had a bit of a rock up his backside because he didn't clear a couple of balls. So is he really not going to launch it in the Rose Ed next week? If it's there, I don't know. But if as far as risks concerned, I think we're covered. I think if I wouldn't feel any worse going in with Devine or Sterling on the left-hand side of that defence than I do with Barisic or Yilmaz at the minute. So, absolutely. If there's a left-back to be had, and if we can get rid of, I think we would get money for Yilmaz. I think like some of the Turkish clubs would pay us like 2.5-3 million for us tomorrow. If we could get it, I'd take it.
It probably shows you we do have a problem in that area if you're two kind of left backs that are battling out for the position. It's as simple as that. You would probably move them on. Kieran, where do you stand on this? Is it something that you would look at, or would you like to give these players another go at this and another bit of time?
I think in Yilmaz's case, right, I like him. I like what I've seen so far. Possibly not at the weekend. There was a few 50-50s and a couple of errors where I thought he's very lightweight. I do like having that attacking presence there, but I think he would be better suited to other leagues and not so much us domestically. And I don't mean this being very harsh on him, but I think his height is an issue. Now, that might sound like the most old-fashioned thing ever, given you get players like Iniesta, Xavi and Messi that ruled the game in the world for a long time. But given where he's playing at the moment in Scotland, where it's possibly one of the most physical leagues that he could play in, I just don't know how suited he's going to be to games where he does come up against like a really strong sort of forward player. It's yet to be seen. That I'm being hypothetical here, but at the weekend there was a couple of moments where things get physical, and I just felt like he came off second best. It is an issue, but we're not going to address that issue while we've just signed Stelling that can play there. Kendal said it as well. Adam Devine. I'm not convinced by Adam Devine as much as other guys. We do like to jump the bandwagon with the youngsters, like I said. He will come good. I think the guy's got a great attitude. I don't know if his future lies at Rangers, but he deserves his chance. But in terms of left-back position, there's no way we're going to go out and sign a left-back. It will be probably a hybrid left centre-back that can play centre-back. We all dream of another Sasa Papac, but it's where we are at the moment. I think if Barisic goes, then yes, there is a real possibility that he does go, because he's got a year. Am I right in saying he's got a year left after this? Yeah. In my head, anyone with a year left at Rangers that isn't going to sign on for another season should be up for sale right now. But
yeah,
that's what we're going to have to deal with at the moment.
It's one of those ones where maybe the club have told Borna Barisic and his agent that they should investigate a potential move, but look, if no one's willing to put up the money, then he will stay. And yeah, it'll be an interesting one next summer whether Rangers sign him on, because I don't think he's got a lot of in terms of value right now, so it might be one they maybe decide to keep on after if the wage comes down. I don't know. It's a really interesting debate. That was good as well, because both a lot of different views on that, which is good. I like to hear that. It gets a good debate going. There was a couple of comments here, some funny ones. Scott Stephen, if we start the season with Barisic and Davies, we'll win F all again this season. That is the positivity we need the Monday before the season kicks off, Scott.
That is as positive as that is, honestly. That is positive for that situation.
That should be put in a banner and held across the stand. It's the view of that many people. Be patient, man.
You're so right. Scott Mitchell says here as well, think it's reasonable to suggest that we won't be basing a player's career on pre-season. Ridvan over Borna all day for me at the moment, and I know Scott definitely believes that one. That's not just a throwaway comment. He is not a fan of Borna Barisic, it was fair to say. But yeah, we'll move on. We'll maybe go a wee bit further up the pitch here. And this was something I did have as my notes to talk about, and you both kind of mentioned it earlier, so we'll jump onto it now. There was a bit of debate around Todd Cantwell this pre-season. I agree with what you said, Kendal. He was covering the ground really well. He still shows a lot of enthusiasm, Todd Cantwell. And there's a lot of emotion in his play. Even pre-season, if Rangers are conceding goals, you can see it really irritates him. So he's not had a bad pre-season, right? But we've just not seen that effective Todd Cantwell was seen towards the last 6 to 10 games of the season. What's the best position for Todd Cantwell in this Michael Beale team? And is he realistically going to play there? That's the next question. Is that something that we really need to try and sort out, and we maybe have to move bodies around for him? Does that mean, for example, maybe Danilo and Dessers don't play every game because we're trying to get Todd Cantwell further up in one extra line? What do you make on that?
Yeah, I mean, you've nailed it. That's exactly right. I think Todd, you don't play your best player out of position, and Todd Cantwell. At the minute, if you've got the shirt, you've got the shirt, and he's got that shirt, so he stays in that position for me. Now, Lammers has then taken another shirt in pre-season, so that leaves you with Danilo and Dessers has got to fight for that other jersey, and it's as simple as that. So I think Lammers. I also think that there's potential. We've not seen enough of it yet, let's face it, but Dessers and Danilo could be quite similar players. So for me, Danilo starts because I don't think Dessers is quite up to speed. And I think he says he's more or less alluding to that himself in some of the interviews recently. He's not quite there yet. Danilo was very, very impressive for Feyenoord in the pre-season. He kept saying we were all praying for him to stop scoring because he was bumping the price up. So I mean, to me, he goes in and Lammers is beside him and Cantwell's behind, and there's your front three. But I wouldn't be. I mean, Dill. There's a guy he's mentioned once or twice there, but we're talking about pre-seasons. That guy had a sensational pre-season for a midfield point, which isn't his best place in position, by the way. And he was a standout every time I saw him. He was a standout for me, which surprised the hell out of me because when he signed, I was like, "What?" And that midfield if you have him, you've got Cifuentes and you've got Raskin, with these three in front of them. I mean, that's a tasty. That you just need to sort out your back line. I mean, that's if anybody's not seen Cifuentes, this is the guy when he first got mentioned for Rangers. By the way, and I know we're not talking about him today, but when he first got mentioned, he's the one all the whole transfer window so far in the whole off season that I've been dying to get signed. And I think he makes a huge difference in that. But simple fact, back to Cantwell must play. If you looked at every game towards the end of last season, he was our best player. How many man of the matches did he win? It was game after game after game after game. So you don't remove him because Lammers has had a couple of good games. Because Lammers, as good as he's been, did not affect the games the same way Cantwell did in the same position last year.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. And it comes across to me with Todd Cantwell that because he is such a good player, Michael Beale maybe thinks moving him back one more line just gets him involved more in the play, and he wants him to be involved in pretty much all aspects of play for Rangers. He's maybe sacrificing just having him on the last line. And it's quite interesting because it's a total reverse of last season, because I remember Malik Tillman was being played one deeper. And I always felt that wasn't his best kind of role, and you didn't want him involved in the build-up. You wanted him on the last line. And now I'm starting to get to the same point with Todd Cantwell. You just want him to be affecting that area. We have enough, behind him now to essentially facilitate the ball through to him. So it's a wee bit frustrating sometimes, maybe, been tossed around like that, and he's not been playing his best position. But there's a couple of comments here before I come to yourself on this, Kieran. CGM55, and he does raise a good point. It'll be different for Cantwell when we have 80% of the ball, and I think that is something to be aware of. In pre-season, you don't have much of the ball. SPFL, Rangers are going to have to rely on people from deeper midfield positions to try and break the lines, and maybe that's what we're tailoring this for Todd Cantwell. Chris McFarlane says, totally agree, get Cantwell back in the attacking midfield role. And we've got Hugo Bear in here saying Cantwell up the park will score 15 to 20 goals. Kieran, where do you lie on it then? Is that you started this podcast talking about Todd Cantwell playing further up in the number 10, so here's your chance to really convince us all why Rangers should be doing that.
Right, okay, we'll go back to last season again. I remember he'd done an interview and he was discussing the differences between his form at Rangers and how things dipped at Norwich, and he was saying that the manager had gave him that sort of freedom to roam when he was in that 10 position and he was getting the best out of him, whereas Norwich tried to play him that wee bit deeper, have him too much involved in the nitty-gritty in the middle of the park where he should be playing in that final third. Now, earlier on, I think someone had posted the video again of, remember the 60 pass move that led to Cantwell with a no-look pass and nice finish for Arfield. When you watch him in that, he's all over the place. Nobody's willing to pick him up. He's drifting out wide. He's coming inside. He's switching the play. He's just everything you would want in that sort of free roaming 10 position. He is our best player for me at the weekend. My middle three, and Kendal mentioned him, Dow. I would go Jack with Raskin and Dow, and I would go with Cantwell in behind Lammers and Danilo. I know we've not seen a lot of Danilo. Dessers does look like he's not quite match sharpness yet. I think he's going to be a sensation at Rangers, just not this game. I think Lammers is the guy that looks the sharpest at the moment. And Danilo, you don't go and pay $6 million and sit him on the bench in your first game of the season. Cantwell, the team has got to work around Cantwell. Play Dow close to Cantwell, and you've got two very creative players there. I've been really impressed with Dow. I think the media day we went to as well, Ross, I was really impressed with his attitude and how happy he was to be at Rangers, and it was really looking forward to getting started. Everything I've seen of him, I've been thoroughly impressed. So, our team has got to revolve around Cantwell. There's no doubt about it. And the good thing is, aside from the defence, if injuries are injuries, and we know very well what they're like through the experience of last year, we have got guys like Lammers, Hadji, Tom Lawrence that can play in there. So we have got an embarrassment of riches in the front three, but Cantwell's a man. Starts every week, plays 90. It's got to be like that.
Yeah, absolutely agree with you. Let's stick on Kieran Dill then, because, and I'll stick with you, Kieran, because you spoke about him there. How impressed have you actually been with him? Because Kendal mentioned it, that maybe that midfield three isn't his best role. He's maybe more used to playing one forward. How impressive you been in there? He looks someone that's very, very competitive. Looks like someone that's really up for it. It's just pre-season. And I think I go back to, I think I said this in a previous podcast, I had the Tom Lawrence feel about him. He comes in for a free transfer, no fee. There's no pressure on him. People aren't really expecting a lot of him. And it seems like he's came in and went, okay, well, there's no actual pressure on me, but I'm going to show everyone why I should be playing here week in, week out. And I really like to see that. So how impressed have you been with him? And you've just predicted he'll play there. Do you think he'll be played a lot more in this Rangers midfield than people expect?
Absolutely think so. Is it not the first... Was he not the only guy to start the first 3 games of pre-season? Am I right in saying that? First 2?
I wish my memory was this good, Kieran. I can't confirm that or deny that.
That's why I'm asking you. You're younger than me. I've been impressed. I really like him. I think it's like there's been a few wee intricate through balls he's played where he showed some great technique. Was the game against Olympiacos where he followed up and he was unlucky not to score. The keeper pulled off a really good save. Was it that game? Hamburg, yeah. The clip went about of him with the slide tackles. We didn't really think he had that about him, like playing the deeper role. But like you say, ultra competitive. It can only bode well for you domestically. But I want to see more and more of him. I don't think anyone would disagree with me. I really do want to see more and more with him. In terms of the midfield with Cifuentes, we're going to have to be patient there. The guy coming from another continent, he's from Ecuador, South America. It's going to take him a while to settle in. I think it'll be a wee while before we see the best of him. But what a signing once we get that over the line. But middle 3 for me at the weekend. Jack, Raskin, and it's got to be Dow.
Well, let's have a chat about that midfield then, because we've got a good comment here from Kyle, one of our own, saying, where are all the midfielders going to fit in when Cifuentes is coming through the door? So we'll stick with yourself then, Ken. In terms of Kyle, he's obviously impressed, and more than happy to hear your thoughts on him as well. But you spoke earlier about Cifuentes and how excited you were for him. Sounds like you know quite a bit about the player. You've watched him actively. Where does he fit into this Michael Beale team? Because like Kyle's touched upon there, we do have a lot of options. I'm struggling to see where he breaks in. I think Kieran's right. I think it will take a wee bit of time for him to come through. But where do you think he breaks in when he actually gets in? What's the role he's going to play?
Cifuentes fits into that team wherever Cifuentes wants to fit into that team. Let me tell you, this will not be a debate after his debut. Okay, I'll just say that the guy is an absolute beast of a midfielder. This guy is like... I cannot tell you how excited I am to have this guy in a Rangers shirt. He is an absolute beast of a midfielder. He's not going to... He's got final product. He can score a goal. He's not going to score 20 a season, but he'll score the odd goal. He won't waste possession. But as a ball-winning, mobile, box-to-box midfielder, then this guy is a beast. I think him and Raskin is your kind of step out, and then you'll have a creative. Whether Michael Beale chooses to play Cantwell there now at times, or if it's going to be Dowell or something like that. But then I think that's that midfield 3 is going to be Raskin, is going to be Cifuentes, and you're right. It'll take a couple of weeks for him to come in and get up to the pace because American football is not as quick. But I think anybody that's not seen this guy play properly is in for a treat. The guy was heavily linked for Leeds when Bielsa etc. was there, and that says everything you need to know about the guy. He's a player.
Yeah, I think he was heavily linked with Brighton as well, the window after, I think, on that. And I think I spoke about this before. We don't need to dive into Brighton's recruitment, but we know they've got it pretty spot on down there. CGM55 says Cifuentes will take time to adapt. MLS is not a league that press each other, which I think is fair. I've watched quite a bit of MLS in the last year, and it is a bit of a slower pace. It's maybe more technical. Players get time with the ball. Scotland is very different to any other league in that aspect, I suppose. It's very intense. Even if teams are sitting in a low block, once you get near them, they will press you. RFC 72 here has an eye for a pass as well. He's always looking for the risky pass before playing safe. So I'm going to come back to you then, Kieran, and let you jump in this as well. And Jose Cifuentes, I would imagine you've maybe looked at a wee bit more of him now as the months have went on with the links. I think it's been here for about 2 months. Where do you think he fits in then? I know you said it's going to take time. Do you see him as partnering Nicholas Raskin, or do you see him as maybe one forward with a sitter like Lundstrom or Jack next? What do you think?
Personally, I'd have Raskin as my sitter. I like deep line playmakers. And I think Raskin's very positive. He's excellent at carrying the ball. So for me, Cifuentes would play in front there. I think what Beale absolutely loves about him is how often he gets in the box. From all the footage that I've seen, he is in the box all the time. He's all action, gets forward so well. And that's one thing. When I watched Lammers go back at the weekend, the amount of players we had in the box when Tav delivered, I think I counted 4 or 5. That's exceptional, and Beale will be delighted with that goal that we got on the end of it and a fantastic finish. I think that's what he sees in Cifuentes, a guy that's going to get into the box and get on the end of things. Because we have seen it, when you look at the goals that he scores, a lot of them is just him running on it and smashing it into the net. And I think from what I've seen as well, it looks pretty good in the air. It looks a real good acquisition. And I remember seeing one of these charts, I think I mentioned it on one of the previous pods. Was it one of Feyenoord's players had went to Benfica this year? 30 million move. I can't quite.
Yeah, Cockchu, I believe.
Yes. And one of the analysis guys had said what would be a straight replacement for him, and it showed you the sort of spider graph, and it was Cifuentes, it had said, and it was so close. So if that's what we're getting, by God, it's some signing. But I feel like this is one we've watched for a while, and I'm not giving Ross Wilson any credit for that whatsoever. So, I'm as excited as Kendal. A guy coming in from nowhere we hadn't really heard of, big profile, big reputation. Looks like LAFC are quite sad to lose him. So I'm really looking forward to this one. But we talk about where the guys fit in. It's a long, long season ahead, especially if we get into the Champions League and we know we're at least in Europa. There's a lot of games to play. We're not going to see the same team every week. So we're going to see a lot of them, and I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah, I have to say, I totally agree with you. I think what I always compare to, I don't think they're similar players completely, but we have lost such an important player in our squad with Scott Arfield, not necessarily someone that made an impact from the start of games, but he always made an impact when he came off the bench, and it was always someone from midfield that can make an intelligent run. It just disrupts the defence. Now, I think Cifuentes is going to bring a lot more than that, but if he's always willing to burst into the box and move defenders, someone that's just willing to take a risk off the ball, that's so important, especially when you're playing against low blocks in Scotland. You need to make defenders think. I said this before as well. That's what was so powerful about Alfredo Morelos, of course, a forward player, but he made defenders think. He pulled people out. We need a wee bit more of that, because I'm not sure the strikers we have at the moment are exactly the same profile. So someone coming from deep that can really disrupt things is going to be great. And I love how we're this is all positive now. We started so negative, it's all positive. So we're getting towards the end of the podcast. So we have touched upon him, but I really want to. He's in the thumbnail for this podcast. I really want to touch upon Sam Lammers. So I'm going to come back to you, Kendal. We have spoke about Todd Cantwell, and maybe Sam Lammers is someone that's maybe taking a wee bit of the limelight from him at the moment, and he's playing his role. But honestly, how impressed have you been with him? Because I'm really, really surprised how well he's done. I think I knew that we weren't signing an out-and-out number 9, and he was quite a technical player, but I've been so impressed with him in pre-season. See the ability to go both ways. The amount of time he's went onto his left foot and he's went onto his right and completely bamboozled defenders. I think he's done it 3 or 4 times now in these games. He's really shown that technical quality. He scored a few goals as well. How impressed have you been with him?
Oh, hugely. I think what we have to remember is, as Rangers fans, we don't get enough penalties, and this is why I would be putting Lammers up front with Danilo or with Dessers, for the simple fact that the amount of hot dogs. I mean, the stands are going to be doing fortunes. The amount of hot dogs he sells on that football pitch, he's going that way, and the defenders they're all over the place. And I mean, this is we touched on it earlier. These were quality players, right? This guy is shown in every game he's played in against quality players. He's up against hammer throwers and all this, and as long as he doesn't get injured, because there's always a danger with these kind of things, because they have no idea where they're kicking when this guy's against them. So there's that danger. But if he stays fit, and I would have him in that box at every given opportunity and say, beat at least one guy before you cross it or anything like that, because he's cricket scores and penalties we're talking about. He's been sensational. His work ethic is good. He's tall. He's good in the air. He's picking out passes. He's finishing. I mean, as far as opening spells for a player, it's a 9.5 out of 10 for me.
Yeah, he comes across to me, Kendal, as the replacement for Malik Thielman in this squad, and I don't mean in terms of style, but I mean someone around the box that can just do something that unlocks the defence. I think we've seen that with Ryan Kent in the first couple of years. Maybe we didn't see it in the last couple, but you need players like that around your squad. I think if you get Sam Lammers around the box, especially in Scotland, he's really going to create openings for us. It's just a wee bit different. I'm not really sure he's anything similar to the rest of the squad, because not even Todd Cantwell, I think, like that. He's more of a link-up player. He'll play a 1-2, he'll burst through the box, but Sam Lammers looks to be someone that thrives on taking someone on 1v1. He's not very quick. It's not like he's going to get away from people, but he's got the footwork to really, really annoy defenders. I think that's the best way to put it. Kieran, what do you make of him then, Sam Lammers? You've been impressed?
Big tequila. Absolutely love him.
Or did Tom the commentator call him Sammers? That was a fantastic one as well. I heard that one.
I always thought we should go with the song. Remember the Man U fans used to sing about Jaap Stam. Big Jaap Stam is a big Dutch man. Big Sam Lam is a big Dutch man. Nah, I liked what you said, how close it is to Malik Thielman. I think he gives you that finesse. And I think he's very much a player, like we spoke about Barisic earlier, being a confidence guy. I think Lammers could be like that too. I don't feel like he's found a home the past few years. He's not really kicked on since his time at Feyenoord, wasn't he?
Yeah.
He just signed
I think he was at Heerenveen, and then he moved to Feyenoord, and then he made the move to Atalanta, and he'd been on loan a few times.
Yeah, it's almost like we've done like a football manager search of has played for or has plays with Feyenoord, and then we've just signed the forwards. I'm talking rubbish now. So anyway, I think the big man's done absolutely brilliant. That header at the weekend is a phenomenal finish. You've got to remember, he's went front post there. He's went beyond the front post and to angle that into the far post. The keeper's done everything right. The keeper has got his angles correct. But we're going to get the best out of this guy. I think under Michael Beale, he loves him. When Beale spoke about signing him, he had watched him throughout youth tournaments when he was younger and tracked him. And I think that's the good sign of a good coach. And again, he's willing to put him on the line. But I agreed what you said with first, Ross. I wasn't expecting this. I really wasn't. Mm-hmm. And we speak about Cifuentes and where does he fit in. I think we're now talking about in which position does Lammers start now? He's an automatic starter given how well he's done in pre-season. But he's going to be a sensation for the fans, just the twists and the turns and the drops of the shoulder. And one thing that surprised me, he gets stuck in. I think it was there was a moment at the weekend where he won the initial tackle and then retrieved the ball with his slide tackle, and he's managed to slide Big Dessers in first time, and we're quite unlucky not to score from it. But I think the players are going to breed off him with confidence. But it looks a great signing for me so far, so hopefully I can carry that on throughout the season.
Looks like someone that's adapted really well, Kieran. Looks like someone that a lot of the squad have a lot of time for. You can see that in all the photos, that he has a good laugh with everyone. Looks like he's really close to the manager. And I think the really interesting aspect of Sam Lammers signing is that he's been on Rangers' kind of recruitment list for years. I think it's since he was at Heerenveen, they were tracking him, and it probably shows this is something that we need to get used to when it comes to us as a club and recruitment, that will probably recognise players early on in their career, and maybe they'll get to a place where we can't afford them at that time, but it's all about keeping track of them and bringing them in when they can. And of course, that's a risk, right? We've taken a risk with Sam Lammers. We've taken a risk with quite a few players this summer, but he is one that's shown that it's been worth it. And I think that 3 million fee we were talking about at the beginning of the summer looks like it could be a bit of a bargain if he keeps going. Of course, competitive action hasn't started yet, so he needs to do it in the important games. But look, he can't do any more than he's done in pre-season. I think he's been really good. And I think that's a really positive place to keep it, finish this podcast, should I say. I mean, we started really negative and we finished it really, really positively. So yeah, I've really enjoyed it. I'll just line it up for the rest of the week. I think we've got Kyle back on Wednesday. I think he'll be on the warm-up. I'm not really sure who's on with him. We've got plenty of content on the channel right now. We actually have an exclusive interview with the Rangers women's team manager, Joe Potter. You should really check out. It's a really great interview with her. She really talks about our background and things like that, and it's really good. You should check it out. You can find us on all social media platforms, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. You can subscribe to the pod, follow the podcast on all podcast platforms such as Apple Music, Spotify. And yeah, please consider subscribing to the channel and giving us a like if you enjoy the content. It really helps us out here. So yeah, just need to close the show now and thank my guests. Kieran, first of all, thanks for joining me tonight, mate. Really appreciate it.
Absolute pleasure, Ross, and a big well done to Kendal on his debut. I think that's the best debut I've seen since Chris Boyd against Peterhead when he scored 5, mate. You're fantastic.
Cifuentes will beat that when he comes in. Don't worry about that.
I love your positivity.
Oh, there's too much positivity to our Rangers podcast. I don't know what's going on. But yeah, Kendal, thanks very much for joining us. It was, like Kieran said, it was a great debut. I hope you enjoyed it. My
pleasure. Yeah, it was great. Great fun. Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, not a problem. We'll see you again soon. But yeah, thanks everyone for getting involved in the comments that were flying. Really, really appreciate everyone getting involved. That's what it was all about. We're trying to create that kind of feel here and everyone has their say. So yeah, thanks very much and we'll see you in the next one. Cheers.